Hello and welcome to Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast in all of the internet. My name is Patrick Knisley.
My name is Matthew Stoner.
My name is David Howe.
And my name is Jordan Willis.
Hey! Very special guest Jordan Willis in the house.
Joining us here for episode 34, where we're going to talk about the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake for the Switch.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, how's everybody doing today? Anything going on in your own personal lives, non-gaming related, you want to talk about?
Oh, that's a good question.
Everything's going great, and nothing's going wrong.
That's all you can really ask for.
That's about as good as it gets.
This weekend was insane for Switch releases.
Agreed.
And
Yep.
I want to say that there have been other things going on in my life, but really
That's
I've just
true.
been playing a shit ton of Switch games.
That's true.
Yeah.
Untitled Goose Game, Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. Was there any other big ones? I mean, I know
Sayonara Wild Hearts,
and
Tetris 99, Maximus Cup,
Ni no Kuni, the remake came out as well?
came out.
Yeah, or the remaster?
AI, the Somnium Files, which I'm not playing, but I've heard you don't want to sleep on. And then of course, you know, the big old Star Wars release today as well. You know?
Yeah, is that today?
Is that the pinball game?
No, not the pinball game. No,
already
dude,
out.
fucking Kyle Katarn came out today.
Oh, it's
Kyle
today?
Katarn's
He's a real guy, and he came out as homosexual.
Well, we're going to be
awesome.
talking this
Good for him.
episode about Link's Awakening, and in light of this original Game Boy game remake, we posed the question on the Facebook group of what Game Boy games might you like to see remade, similar to this, and there were some good responses. I don't know if people were serious, but they talked about the Game Boy camera. Came up a few times.
Yeah, well, I'd love a camera. I'd love a camera on the Switch,
and also the printer. Somebody asked for a printer. There was never a printer for the Game Boy.
Oh yeah,
there was.
Game Boy camera and Game Boy printer. There was a couple.
I wanted to mention who was it? Chris Carrington said Quirk. I really loved Quirk back in the day. That was like a puzzle game where you played as a tomato. Good stuff.
Yeah. I think the two most realistic ones and the ones that I would have posited, but I made kind of the post, so I didn't want to like take the two most obvious ones, was they need to bring Samus Returns to the Switch, right? Because they've already remade it, but it was for the 3DS. So like that seems like obviously that's the most, you know, viable remake. But then 6 golden coins.
Yes.
Super Mario Land 2.
Yeah, I think
A classic of Mario.
Andrew McHugh said Samus Returns, and I think like Tommy Green or somebody said, maybe it was Ryan Robinson, Tommy Green, both were talking about all the Super Mario Land games.
I feel like for 6 golden coins, the one problem is, though, have you replayed that game recently?
Yeah, I have.
It takes like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like such a short like experience, which is not a bad thing, but I think they would have to put all three
together.
Yeah.
Oh,
to
right,
make like
right.
a collection or something. Yeah.
So like with Wario Land, I guess, as well.
Yeah, and then the first one. Yeah.
Man, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
All right, Nintendo.
And then some people also said Gargoyle's Quest. I never played that. I guess it must have been a good game.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it.
I mean, I remember or maybe that. Yeah, I don't know anything about it either. So there you go. Have to check that out.
What about a town remake?
That'll be on the Switch 4.
Great. Guys, I never had a Game Boy Color.
Really?
I didn't
Yeah.
either. I just had a regular Game Boy.
Oh,
Yeah.
I had a Game Boy Pocket, and a Game Boy Color.
Whoa.
Yeah, I needed to stay up on the trends when I was a kid. I told my parents, I said, "You get this for me right now," and they said, "Okay."
Shout out to Hidden Pixels podcast because they gave us a nice shout out on Twitter. Hidden Pixels podcast, they do like a really interesting sort of narrative, like story based podcast where they take a minor thing in a video game and explore it and like write a thing out about it. It's really cool. They did one recently on Zelda, like is it Terrytown, the side quest where you go and you build your own town?
Right in Breath of the Wild.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They did an episode about that, and right after they released that, they shouted us out on Twitter. So that was cool.
That was so nice.
Check out Hidden Pixels podcast.
Good stuff.
Getting into the news, and maybe you can give us a follow-up on last week about Sasha, because the Switch Lite came out. Did she end up going that route? Or
we went to Target the other day, and Sasha got herself a Switch Lite, and I gotta say, I've played around with it a little bit, and it's just a delight to play with.
Yeah, how does it feel to you? I'm
it
really
feels
curious.
great. Yeah.
What color?
So it actually, we were looking around for places that had display units, right? Because we kind of wanted to see the colors in person, kind of feel it, make sure she didn't want an OG Switch. So originally we ended up getting a yellow version, and then brought that home. We're messing around with it for a little bit, and then yellow just was not speaking to her.
Wow.
So we ended up returning it and getting a gray.
That's funny.
And so now Sasha has a gray Switch. Yeah. So every story has a happy ending.
Oh, I'm surprised. I would have thought the yellow would have had a little more pop and color and all that, but
Yeah, I think it was just a little too loud.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And the gray is a better looking color than it is on the box. I will say
And
that it's a little bit darker. It's like almost like a charcoal, where on the box it looks like a light gray.
It has better contrast with the sticks and buttons too than
exactly.
the Joy-Con, the gray Joy-Cons do, which just seem more dull because
Right.
black buttons.
Right,
whatever.
exactly. It's the white sticks and buttons on the gray unit actually looks really, really nice. Yeah. But yeah, she's been really enjoying it so far. I've been playing around a little bit with it, and it feels really good in your hand, and the screen is not too small.
What's the D-pad like? Is it good?
D-pad is good. D-pad, it's a little small.
Oh.
I wish it were a little bit bigger. It's like kind of in between like a Pro Controller D-pad and a GameCube D-pad, like kind of in size. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's like, but it feels good to use, and I think it's just something that I would get used to. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like we said, that obviously that came out to everybody now, and there's been some things going around on the internet about it. In particular, there's some videos going around of people showing what maybe is not Joy-Con because it's not Joy-Cons, but stick drift. But I guess people aren't sure. It would seem pretty quick for that to be drift, not impossible. So maybe it's just manufacturing error or something like that. We're not sure.
The
More
general
time will
consensus,
tell.
there was like one guy who posted a video of the right stick in Breath of the Wild kind of continuously turning the camera like really slowly. But the kind of consensus right now is that's probably just a manufacturer error. Like there were like you remember when the Switch came out for the first time, there were all these videos of like, oh, my Switch is cracked, or it's bending, and everybody was like, really freaking out about it. But there's going to be a few issues at the beginning.
Let's hope that it sounds like they're the same sticks though from some teardowns.
That's true.
So we'll see. We don't know. Oh, it's nervous. I'm nervous on Sasha's behalf, but.
Well, if you can send in your Joy-Cons to get them fixed, surely you can send in
If
your
it
Switch
becomes
to get
a
it
big issue like the Joy-Cons are, then I think they're going to have to deal with it like the, Xbox 3 or the Red Ring?
The RROD.
Yeah.
Hey, can we have just like a half a second moment of silence just on Sasha's behalf?
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
Okay, sure.
And we're done.
All right.
And you added this one on here. According to Teardowns, there is no TV output possible at all. Like there's no way to even hack it. Though I did see a video of somebody like with a camera set up pointed at their Switch.
Yeah, someone set up like a camcorder
feed to their TV, which obviously would have a lot of delay. But,
you don't want to do
but
it.
it was just a joke, I think.
Yeah. Why can't it output to TV?
It doesn't have the capability.
Basically, there's like a video chip inside of the OG Switch that allows it to transfer through USB-C to HDMI, and that chip is missing from the Switch Lite. So it's like everybody was kind of holding out hope that it's like, oh, maybe they just use the same basic internals, to save money and blah, blah, blah. And so, you could hack it or blah, 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 hook it up to something. But that is just not the case. Like, you cannot hook this up to a TV. So don't try. You might fry your Switch Lite.
And then you have this note too. I saw this as well that in Mario Odyssey, like some of the moons where you have to kind of let the HD rumble tell you where to go. The Switch Lite has no rumble at all, not even regular rumble. And it looks like they've patched in, and they may have done this before the Switch Lite. They obviously probably did it with the VR update or something. But that where now there's just a little bit of screen shake for those moons. So there's a way to find them now.
Right, yeah. It kind of like knows when you're playing on a Switch Lite and will shake the screen instead of shaking the controller.
I think the Switch must know whether you have... because I think it also now is the case if you were playing on your original Switch, but with a controller that doesn't have rumble, like they must have a way to detect rumble now.
Right. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. I mean, it shows that at least the first party games are going to have a sort of workaround. There was also I think Monster Boy, I believe, was the game.
Yeah.
That they said that they kind of teased that they were going to be adding some Switch Lite exclusive features to the game, and it would like know if you were playing on a Switch Lite, and it would kind of change it up a little bit. Basically, those features were released, and it just changes the HUD to be like the color. You can change the HUD to be the color of your Switch Lite.
Wow.
Right. So if you have a turquoise, you have a turquoise HUD, something kind of like that.
That's cool.
So it is kind of cool. It's kind of cute. And I think you can also even change it to like red or blue, like the Joy-Cons as well too. So it's like the people with an OG Switch don't have to be left out.
Well, all of this inclusiveness for the Switch Lite is great.
It's really nice. I think this thing is going to sell really, really well. After playing with it, it feels like a Game Boy successor. You know what I mean? Especially with Link's Awakening coming out this past weekend and it being kind of the flagship game that's being released alongside this console. It's like, this is Nintendo being like, here's something just for the portable crowd, you know, and it feels really nice.
And I did see some numbers, I don't have this in here, about its sales in Japan in the first however long of it being out. And I didn't really even have context for those numbers, so that's why I didn't put it in the news, and now I'm talking about it. And I don't cool. So here we are. But speaking of Japan, Nintendo had its 130th anniversary just a couple days ago, September 23rd.
Well, happy birthday.
Yeah,
Yes.
1889. They've been around since then.
That's so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't originally make video games, because believe it or not, there were no video games in 1889.
I don't believe you.
But they made like cards, right? Like
They made like Hanafuda cards. It was kind of
what's Hanafuda?
It's a Japanese card game. It was it was used for like illegal gambling a lot during the time, and then I think basically they had made the cards legal. And then I think 3 years later, Nintendo started making these cards a ton. And they still make them. There's like a Daitorio set, which means president in English.
Oh, okay.
And they made a whole deck of these cards that you can still buy from their website to this day. So if you're interested in learning the ancient Japanese card, I don't know, ancient compared to me, the card game of Hanafuda, I would recommend checking out the Japanese Nintendo site.
Did y'all ever have Club Nintendo?
I did. Yeah.
Do you remember they had the special Hanafuda set on Club Nintendo?
Yeah, I remember. I never had enough gold points to get it.
Yeah, me neither, but it was sick.
I really wanted to get that. I miss my Nintendo.
Yeah.
Or wait, Club Nintendo.
Nintendo.
Yeah, we have
it's my Nintendo now.
Yeah, I just like all the physical stuff, and that being one of the physical rewards was super cool. I think I only ended up getting like a calendar and some like posters. But,
I did get a card deck, but it was like a 52 card normal card deck. But I still have it.
I think I also got that same calendar. It was like kind of cardboard, and you folded it over and had like paper sleeves.
Yeah. They still do that too, but like digitally for your kind of like phone background, you can get like in the Japan My Nintendo, you can do that.
Yeah, and in Japan apparently they have a few physical rewards now too, which sucks for us. But
it's
whatever.
for less far shipping in Japan.
True.
Yeah, true.
For like a sticker.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have a lot of Nintendo specific news to talk about this week, but one sort of more broad video gaming news is there was a leak of some E3 slides, like think PowerPoint slides that got out on the internet of potential changes to E3 for next year. We don't know that they're going to actually do these, but it was confirmed that these are legitimate slides, like Polygon or somebody asked, and they said, yes, it's real stuff. But generally speaking, this all kind of showed that they are considering, and again, this might just be one option, but they're considering going to a more fan-focused event. Like selling 10,000 more fan badges and kind of designing the space better for fans to flow around through the space and to have things to do while they're in line. They called it like Q-tainment.
Really? They made up like a weird
the
name
word
for it?
Q and entertainment, which I apparently can't do here on the spot. But yeah, like to have things to do when you're waiting in line so that it's not brutal just sitting there for 3 hours to play 10 minutes of Link's Awakening or something, you know?
Right.
Yeah. It reminds me of like Disney World. They have that kind of stuff, you know, leading up to the lines.
Do they now?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
That's
all the
cool.
new stuff.
I mean, I would just think if you're in line, you just play your Switch.
now it's the Switch,
Right?
yeah. And kind of like splitting it up and having like an industry day and like a media day and an influencer day and stuff like that.
That I think is actually a really good idea. I mean, they kind of do that already, right? It's like, I think on one of the days, it's like early in the day, it's only press, right? And then everybody kind of comes in. But if they're going to be adding like 10,000 more people, like from everything I understand about E3 is that it's already super congested. So they're going to have to extend the amount of days that it is. And yeah, you need to have a press only day. Otherwise you just kill the whole thing.
Yeah, it sort of makes sense too, because from a business perspective, if like the big three, Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony, are moving to digital platforms and they are the big spenders for the big space in the showroom, then it makes sense that to make money, you sell badges to fans or people or influencers or other advertisers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like there's this sort of clash between it being an industry event versus a fan event, and like, you know, we'll see what happens, because I don't know that the industry needs the event anymore is part of the problem too.
It can't be long for this world, right?
At least like, in its current incarnation.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, like just today we had a state of play from Sony, right? Doing like a PlayStation Direct, essentially. It's like, and Xbox has what's their event
Inside
called?
Xbox. It was an hour later after state of play.
Oh, that was today
they did
as
one
well?
today?
Yeah. I didn't even see
got
that.
overshadowed by the PlayStation one a little bit.
Which was boring, by the way. The
Was it really?
PlayStation
I
State
didn't
of Play.
even watch it.
It was not that good. But yeah, it's like, it's clearly, you know, it's like physical games. It's like we all want to hold on to physical games for as long as we can. And like, you know, GameStop is trying desperately to hold on to physical game sales, but it's not long for this world. We're in a different world. So it's inevitable, but I would like to see E3 go on for as long as it possibly can, just simply for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah, and to like centralize some of the excitement and hype in the news.
For
like,
sure,
we all get excited for the E3 week, and it's like super exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
all the announcements and stuff going on. I wonder if they can transition to something more like PAX. So that's kind of what it sounds like they're trying to do.
Sure.
Yeah,
and just be able to keep people coming.
Yeah. I think if they go towards a fan sort of thing, it'll definitely just be like a bigger PAX.
Well, at E3 this year, Luigi's Mansion 3, they said that there wasn't going to be any DLC. And I kind of went back and reread that news because I was like, what's going on with this? And the articles were all kind of like story DLC. And I was like, at the time, it didn't really strike me. It just sounded like no DLC for the game. But they have now put up the Luigi's Mansion 3 like official webpage, and that does say that paid DLC will come to Luigi's Mansion 3 in the future, adding new content to the Scarescraper and Scream Park multiplayer modes. So I guess there will be some form of new mini games or something you can buy. I don't know. We'll see. But I felt a little bit swindled when they said there was going to be no DLC for that game.
I would buy the DLC if it was like a battle royale.
Yeah, we'll see what it is. So the Scarescraper and the Scream Park...
8-player multiplayer is not enough for me.
Yeah.
I need
99 Luigi's, Guigi's.
Well, I feel like, what do you think? I mean, it's like more skins or something? Like you can play as Mario now or something. I don't know.
I bet they'll be adding levels and content to keep that game going for a while.
Probably like modes, maybe. I don't know. I played the Luigi's Mansions 2 Dark Moon, and the multiplayer on that was kind of scarce. It was fun, but like there just wasn't much to do. So I could see them adding like more modes and things like that. Yeah.
I don't really know anything about this Pokemon news. I know there was like they put up some website where you can take a picture with a Pokemon or something. Somebody want to take over this?
Yeah,
and,
you
like,
want to take this one, Matt?
They were able to like figure out. People were able to look at the code from the website.
Oh yeah, there was just some Nintendo leaked on their website, probably by accident. I didn't get the technical details, but the TLDR version is that we think we know what the evolution changes will be for the Pokemon. Like, not what their names are, but which Pokemon will have evolutions.
Right.
So, like, Grookey is one of the starting Pokemon. It had, like, a code name like Gorilla 1.
I think that's also been leaked separately too, right? Like in one of that Pokemon leak that happened. So that lines up, right?
Yeah.
I guess check this out if you want to have some evolution spoiled for you. But like it was some weird website where you could like upload a picture and it'll put a Dynamaxed Pokemon next to you or something.
That's crazy, yeah.
And then I guess they had stuff in the code that people could just pull out.
I saw there was one that was like Corviknight. The bird is the final evolution of some basic birds before it. So that's the only one they've showed us, but apparently that's like a third evolution.
And
so that's interesting.
Also, last week we didn't talk about this because they did a weird announcement and reveal like that happened right between when we recorded, when we put out the episode, but they had a glitchy spot on their website for a few days, and then they cleaned it up, and it was a reveal. Somebody want to talk about that? That's more Pokemon knowledgeable too.
Do you know anything about that?
Was it Sir Farfetch'd?
Yeah, it was Sir-Fetched.
Sir-Fetched?
Yeah.
It's tight.
There's like
Farfetch'd
a dapper
with a sword.
yeah, like a dapper version of Farfetch'd where his leak is now like a green onion or something.
Yeah, he's holding a green onion as a sword, I guess. It's
right, and he's also got a shield.
which is like a leaf or something, or some other vegetable.
Oh, like sword and shield.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But vegetable.
But Sir-Fetched will be exclusive to the sword version of Pokemon Sword and Shield. So if that means a lot to you, maybe pick up Sword instead of Shield.
So did you say that this game already came out this week, that Jedi Outcast has released?
Yeah, so Jedi Outcast released today on the eShop. Today's being
The day we're
Tuesday, the
recording
day
it,
we
yeah.
record. So it's definitely out now if you're listening to this podcast. Everything I'm hearing right now is that it's pretty much a straight port, which means that, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the episode, kind of the merits of having a straight port versus adding a bunch of content. But this is definitely a straight port where it's like,
Now we know why it's $10.
yeah, basically they didn't add any multiplayer, local or online, and I think that's part of the reason that it's so cheap. But also the main issue and the main reason that I haven't bought the game yet is that it doesn't have an option to invert the Y-axis for your camera. Yeah,
Weird.
exactly. And it's like, that might not mean a lot to a lot of younger listeners of our podcast out there, that, you know, a lot of younger players press up to look up and down to look down when you're in a first person perspective. But, you know, people that were raised on like N64 days of shooters or flight simulators or something like that are way more used to using an inverted Y-axis. That makes more sense to me, right? Because for me, it's always been like the stick is your head, right? Or the back of someone's head. And if you want to look down, you push the stick up. You know what I mean? Because you're like,
thank you for that explanation.
yeah, you're like pointing it down.
good way to
Works
explain
like I think of it like a throttle.
Right,
Like
or a
if you-
throttle on a plane.
Yeah, if you want to pull the nose of the plane up, then you pull back.
Right. And that's how I was taught originally. Like, my dad is a pilot, and like, he was really into like Pilot Wings and Star Fox for the Super Nintendo and stuff. And those are the kind of games that he kind of first introduced to me. And those were all games that used inverted controls. So, and at first I remember being like, Dad, this makes no fucking sense. I didn't say that. I was like 6. I was like, this makes no,
Fuck you, Dad.
This makes no freaking sense, Dad, you fucker. But it stuck, you know what I mean? And I've been using it for first person shooters or anything with camera movement ever since. And it's just very strange that this game like added in motion controls, but did not add an option to invert the Y-axis. It's very odd.
Wait,
You dropped
what?
this Nintendo Life link in of their review, and yeah, it's pretty damning review. They're just like, it's really brutal to get past this first part, and then after that, there's this part.
Right.
And then eventually it's good.
They
but-
get like a 6 or a 6.5 or something like that. And it's like, that's not bad. You know what I mean? Basically, they were just like, it's the game with no quality of life improvements,
Yeah, and so-
other than motion.
not everything is held up.
Yeah.
Holds up.
I'm still going to get it, but I'm going to wait for them to patch in Y-axis inversion.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah, it's very, very strange.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a game that lacked Y-axis inversion.
Not in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another game coming very soon is Ori and the Blind Forest. Comes out September 27th, and there is a demo on the eShop if you want to check that out. I've never played this game. I understand it's not the longest game to begin with, right? Maybe 10 hours or something
Yeah,
like
it's
that?
about 10 hours.
Yeah.
I played it. It's fantastic.
It's a
It's a
wonderful game.
very good game.
I've been
yeah.
waiting to play it.
Yeah.
I should play it. Should
Yeah,
I play
check
it?
out the demo.
I think
Should I
you-
play it?
You should.
Yeah.
there's it's
Do you
just
like
tough.
when you play
Metroidvanias?
it.
I do.
Yeah, if you like Metroidvanias and really cute, beautiful, hand-drawn art styles, you'll love this game.
There's just so many games out right now.
Dude,
Yeah,
top tier
yeah.
Metroidvania. As someone who plays a lot of them, it's like top tier. Yeah,
Nice.
very good. Yeah,
I kind of like the length too, knowing that it's only 10 hours feels like
yeah.
doable.
For me, I'm very busy, so like I always look on how long to beat, and I'm like, all right, is this game over 15 hours? No, I'm not gonna buy it.
The shorter games tend to be a little cheaper too, which is nice.
That's true.
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Also announced recently is that in Asia, at least, there's going to be a physical edition of Final Fantasy 7 and 8, like on one cartridge, a dual pack of the games, releasing sometime this year, and confirmed that it will have English on it. So if you're a physical person who wants a physical copy of those games, you can now import it using PlayAsia or some other website possibly too. That's pretty cool. There will actually be a cartridge for Final Fantasy VII on a Nintendo system.
That's pretty wacky, huh?
Well, do you think though that it'll come with Final Fantasy VII on the cart, and you'll have to download Final Fantasy VIII,
So
like they did X and X2?
So no, like Asia doesn't do that.
they
basically.
good.
Yeah.
They
It's
do that
annoying.
here in the West, but not over there.
basically,
Good.
at
They're
least
not messing around.
I mean, Asia is a large continent with a lot of different countries in it, right? And so it's like when like these Asian releases aren't Japanese releases. Like this is for the rest of Asia, right? And so like a lot of these countries in Asia don't have dedicated eShop regions, so they can't download games. So you'll find a lot of times when there's like for instance, in the West, the Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 things that are all being released on a cart in Asia are only being released digitally here. You know what I mean?
And I think Bayonetta 1 and 2, where one was digital in the West, I think they had a version in Asia that was both on a cart.
Yeah, it was either a bigger cart or it was two smaller carts.
But either way, it was all on cartridge.
Either way, I do think it's weird that they didn't do 7, 8, and 9 for slightly more, you know, because that would be like the PlayStation collection of Final Fantasy games. But I have to imagine that I think if you added all the size of the games together, it would be slightly bigger than an 8 gig cart, and they didn't want to spring for the 16 gig cart. So that's kind of a shame. And then they don't do the download thing, so you like can't have them all in a collection. But either way, it's cool. Yeah, if you're a physical collector, I mean, I wish they had 9 on there though, man. I might even have bought that if it had 9 on it, just because I love the idea of having all the Final Fantasy games on my Switch.
Well, our next bit of news is going to kind of lead us into our topic. The Link's Awakening game that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. The sales so far, it sounds like at least day one sales were higher than any other Nintendo first-party game. That's sort of being speculated. And in the UK, it's like the number one game by a lot. And so I think people are saying it's Grezzo, the name of the developer that did the remake. It's like their biggest release so far. And
they did Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask for 3DS, which are arguably more popular games than Link's Awakening. And so that's a pretty big thing for them.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. And hopefully this shows that people want not just old games remade, which I guess that's cool. We want that too. But also we just want more Zelda. More like the old school Zelda. I mean, I like Breath of the Wild. I want an open world Zelda. I want also a top-down Zelda as well.
Right. I think what it proves is that like Breath of the Wild injected huge amount of interest back into this franchise.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that was maybe their first Zelda game, and now they're like, oh, I'll play this one too.
Right. Like Twilight Princess sold really, really well. I think it outsold Ocarina of Time even whenever Twilight Princess came out. I mean, it helps that it was one of the launch games for the Wii, and it was also on the GameCube, right? But then Skyward Sword didn't really sell that well. The Link Between Worlds sold okay. But Zelda has never been a big system seller really until Breath of the Wild. And I think just Breath of the Wild was like a cultural milestone. And it just shows that has increased the whole entire brand recognition, not just like big open world games, but like even these old school games now are kind of still riding off of the hype of Breath of the Wild. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Even on the Link's Awakening mega thread on Reddit, there were multiple people asking the question, I've never played a Zelda game. Should I play Breath of the Wild or Link's Awakening?
Right.
It's like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
How would you answer that question?
Breath of the Wild.
You think so? You think that's like a better introduction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're two completely different games. It's hard to say which one is better than the other. It's like apples and oranges.
Yeah, I feel like you'd have to ask a question. Like, do you want to spend hours and hours exploring, or do you want like a tighter experience? You know what I mean? Like,
see, that's kind of where my girlfriend's at right now. Like with her new Switch, she's like trying to pick between starting with Link's Awakening or Breath of the Wild. And it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense to start with Link's Awakening because you're kind of working your way up to more modern game types. But then also, I do feel like Breath of the Wild is probably more accessible at the very beginning from a modern gamer perspective.
I feel like, yeah, from modern gaming perspective, Breath of the Wild is definitely more like up to date.
Right.
But I like Link's Awakening to know the formula of Zelda, because like for a long time up until Breath of the Wild, Zelda has a formula for every game. You know, you do not the exact same things, but you have like this specific type of path that you go down. Whereas Breath of the Wild is just do whatever. You see that mountain, go climb it. You see that river, go swim in it. Yeah.
And that works for some people and not others. I know some people, they're like, well, I just quit after 15 hours because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So you're not supposed to do anything.
I do.
You know what I mean? Like,
I do think it's smart that they went with a Link's Awakening remake instead of like one of the 3D Zelda remakes following Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah.
Because I think if you were to play like Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess or Wind Waker or something like that, like, remade completely right now, it would feel limiting having just played a 3D Zelda where you can climb anything and do whatever you want. But when you're really really constrained to the top-down perspective, and there's like
screen at a time.
Screen at a time kind of vibes, especially for the dungeons. It's like, oh, okay, I'm taking like 5 steps back, in a way. But it's like, it's not necessarily a step back. That has a bad connotation.
It's like a more controlled almost.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I feel like it would be better to like play Breath of the Wild than something like this, or, Link's Awake or, A Link to the Past, which is now also on the Switch, and then move on to the 3D Zeldas to kind of follow that pattern, right?
Yeah.
Well, we've been taking breaks and then getting into our main topic, but I kind of feel like we're there already.
Sure. So, well, here, let's just play the music.
Just take a break, yeah.
I have a question before we transition to the next section.
Okay, right.
Some Super Switch Headz universe question.
Sure.
A Switch Head proposed the idea that Town coming out soon is the end of our season 1.
Yeah.
Is there any merit to this?
I mean, you kind of put me on the spot here while we're recording, but I think that if you have to take a podcast in chunks, then yes. If it's not like one solid freeform flow of talking into your ears and it's going in chunks, then I think that Town coming out would be the end of our first season.
Yeah, I think that's the meta story that's happening.
I think so.
Behind all the news.
I think we need to come up with some narrative shit to force that into perspective.
Fuck you, Matt. I hate you.
We got to have a really good season premiere of season 2 is basically what that boils down to.
I just wanted to give some love to the people that have been listening to us since January.
That's true.
And say thank you for listening. And you probably heard us or me say the same jokes every single week. But all of us have our own things. And so thank you.
So now we'll take a break and then come back.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay, so we're here to talk about Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, the new version for the Switch. The original one came out back in 1993 for the Game Boy, and then later they put sort of like a DX version out on the Game Boy Color in 98. And then they had the DX version, I believe, came to the 3DS Virtual Console.
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
And so back in February of this year, like right around when we started, they announced, doing this podcast, they announced the remake for the Switch. And like we mentioned kind of earlier, Grezzo handled the remake. So we're going to talk about it. All of us had a chance to play at least a little bit. You have this note on here though, David, and I think we should, because it's next on here, and because I had no idea.
I put it on there.
Or you put it on there?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for assuming it was David. Tell me about this, because I had no idea about this. Take it away, man.
Yeah, sure. There's this interview that I can't think of the website right now. If I had a smart device, I would click on that link, but I have a sheet of paper on there.
It's Vice.
But Vice did a cover article on this interview with Tezuka, the original producer for Link's Awakening in the 90s. And he said that he and some of the staff were influenced by Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah.
And in the interview, there's a couple quotes that are really fascinating. Quote, "I didn't try to do that on purpose about Twin Peaks. We were talking about the before you, Iwata, arrived. I was talking about fashioning Link's Awakening with a feel that's somewhat like Twin Peaks. At the time, Twin Peaks was rather popular." And he goes on to say about the similarities between Link's Awakening and Twin Peaks is, quote, "The drama was all about a small number of characters in a small town, so I wanted to make something like that. While it would be small enough in scope to easily understand, it would have a deep and distinctive characteristics. So I think that's interesting because as a person who's never played Link's Awakening is so fucking weird.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because as you were saying earlier, like there's a formula and this like feels differently and follows the formula, but is like a jazz album to the normal formula.
Yeah.
Very apt description because it definitely like riffs on the formula, but definitely takes it in weird ways, and introduces a lot of new series staples as well, which I don't know if we want to get into those quite yet.
Yeah. Well, we will at some point for
But
sure.
the Twin Peaks thing too, it strikes me. I've never played this game before either, but it felt very much like it, like outsider arriving in a town. And the humor, like I'm not used to that much direct humor in a Zelda game as this game has. And like there's the log lady in Twin Peaks, like that chain chomp lady just strikes me as very similar to
It's very Lynchian in its kind of dream-like approach to it.
that too.
Right?
Yeah,
It's like I was playing it the other day and I actually saved a little video of this just so I could watch it again. But there's like a moment in this game where you walk into an alligator's house and this alligator has like a straw hat on and you give him some canned meat. And he just like gobbles it up and then trades you. He's like, "Oh man, I ate your meat. Here's some bananas." And I was like, "That's the most David Lynch shit I've ever seen in my entire life." You know what I mean? It's very odd,
Yeah. So before we talk about anything else, Matt and I just said this, but it was our first time playing this on the Switch. Did either of y'all play the original or the DX version, or what was your experience with this game before?
Yeah, I had the DX version whenever I had a Game Boy Color as a kid. Honestly, I think this is probably my second Zelda game. I think I played Ocarina of Time, and then since I liked that one so much as a kid, I was like, oh, I'll get this, not realizing even that was an older game technically, but yeah, that was my first time playing it as a kid, and I loved it. I played it a bunch. It was one of my favorite games for Game Boy Color, for sure.
Yeah, I had a really similar story. It was like the first Zelda game I played was 1998, November, whenever Ocarina of Time came out. Or rather Christmas. I got it for Christmas. And just loved the shit out of it and was totally inspired by the whole world and everything. And I just couldn't get enough Zelda stuff, right? And then I think Link's Awakening DX also came out in 98. I played the Game Boy Color version and just couldn't stop. It was that game totally took over my life. And I just have like very strong memories of playing this game on my Game Boy Color in the back seat of my parents' car at night while we're driving and having to like hold it up so that the headlights from the car behind us would illuminate the the Game Boy Color screen because there's no backlight. You know what I mean? And just like, just spending like tons of hours at night, like not falling asleep and just playing this game. And I just did that the other night. I stayed up way too late playing this game. It's very addictive,
Yeah. You didn't have the like the little light attachment for your Game Boy Color?
No, I never did. I wasn't a big accoutrement man. I liked it professional and sleek. Yeah, exactly.
All right, I get you.
Yeah, somehow
it's nice to right now for me. This game is just a huge nostalgia trip.
Somehow I missed this game. I didn't own an NES when the NES was big, but I played those Zelda games at my friend's house. But I was Link to the Past was my big Zelda introduction, and I played Ocarina of Time and other ones too. But I missed this game. So you were talking about some of the things that it subverted in terms of the previous Zelda entries. I thought that was interesting. I didn't really know that. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So this is the first Zelda game to have a fishing minigame, which has been pretty much every other Zelda since. And it's also the first Zelda to have trading quest. So that of course appeared in Ocarina of Time.
With Big Oron Sword and everything.
Yeah. So, and the trading quest is like brand new to this game, which I really enjoy. In this one, it kind of like follows the flow of the story as well. But kind of really just started some new tropes for the Zelda franchise. And I think this game, they took a lot more risks because it was a lot less pressure. It was Game Boy was still very new when the original one came out. So they kind of got a little bit of free reign. It's also the first game that Miyamoto was not producing the game. So he didn't have not complete, but like more creative control on it, which led to them being able to do a couple different things. Like the main thing being Tezuka had wanted to, in Link to the Past, be able to de-equip de-equip the
I like dequip.
to de-equip the sword, and so you could be able to have different items and combine items, which got cut from Link to the Past. But he liked that idea so much, he brought it to this one as well.
Mm-hmm. And it makes a lot of sense with like the lack of face buttons on a Game Boy, right? Yeah. Also, I think it's unequip. I think I just remember what the actual word is. But yeah, I and what you were saying too about like trading quests, like I was just playing Fire Emblem the other day, and there's like a quest in that game, like it influenced more than just Zelda games, right? It's like I think trading quests are like a staple of RPGs at this point, right? It's like give me this, and then I'll give you this, and then you just have to like find the right person to give it to. The difference in Fire Emblem is that on your map it shows you exactly where you need to bring the items to, and in this game you really have to use your noggin.
Yeah, trading quests are fun. They're like a meta puzzle.
So we got several elements about the game that I thought we could discuss. Sort of the obvious one first off is the visuals of this game, because it's new remake. They've changed obviously the visuals from the Game Boy or even the Game Boy Color up, which I guess was the same with just color. Or did the DX version vary much from the original? Do y'all know?
They added some stuff. They added a dungeon.
Yeah, they added the color dungeon, and then other than that, it's pretty much just colors.
The same visual.
I think the DX is also where they added Game Boy printer capability.
Okay.
Yeah, you get like a little camera and you can take photos and you can print them out on your Game Boy printer.
Mm-hmm.
But what do y'all think about the visuals in the remake? I think it looks really adorable.
For sure.
Are you happy with their choice, the stylistic choice, Jordan?
I love it. I like.
I wasn't sure what you were going to say there.
Ever since I've gotten this game, all I can scream to my roommate is, "Oh my god, it's so cute!" Like just all the time, because it's just.
I got
adorable.
the amiibo and I'm passing it around.
Yeah, Matt just handed me the Link's Awakening amiibo. That's my first time actually seeing it in person.
Look
And
at those
man,
eyeballs.
I want one right now. Look at the gradient on his hair. So
Yeah,
shiny.
the amiibo's pretty cool.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, they really went that direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people weren't sure at first. Sort of claymation-y style.
Sure, toyetic, as I've heard it referred to on online. But I think it's a similar jump from like Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask to Wind Waker, right? Where they like totally cartoonified
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, it makes sense that when going from Breath of the Wild, like, this, Miyazaki-esque, anime Zelda game to, a top-down classic Zelda game, you're going to want to like kind of simplify the graphics a little bit as to not like make it too complicated, I guess, or, to kind of like signify the change in game style. So I think it works really well. Yeah, I like it a lot.
I think the art style really pays off in the fishing minigame, because when Link catches a fish, he's so thrilled.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
he's so
happy.
stoked.
Yeah, he holds
Yeah.
it up and it like zooms in on him. Yeah, it's really nice.
I think it fits the humor really well too. Like I haven't gotten as far into this yet as probably all of y'all, but it just the style of this Zelda game really strikes me as just so much more silly with all the Mario characters, and like you said, there's a crocodile and bananas, and I'm like, what is going on here? And this art style fits that better than if they had gone obviously for like a more realistic style.
Yeah,
or something.
Animal Village would not have worked in a realistic style.
Not at all. It's also interesting to see Grezzo.
I never thought to pronounce Grezzo as Grezzo.
That's how it's really pronounced, isn't it, Jordan? Thank you.
Yes, Grezzo.
Grezzo.
I've been waiting this entire time. It's interesting to see them do their own art style, because on the other remakes that they've done, which I think they did Luigi's Mansion, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, they really true to the style,
Right.
And just up-resing and bringing it into modern times. But this one, we got to see a little bit of their flair,
Yeah,
and it's
for
really
sure.
cool to see. Yeah.
I feel like the previous games did a really good job of with the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask remakes in particular. Those were like, they looked like how you remembered them, but then you like do a side by side and you're like, oh, these games look way better. You know what I mean? And this was like, you can't just do it like the original style, but you can't make it look like how you remembered it, basically. You know what I mean? So they really got to kind of flex their muscles a little bit and try a little bit of a different thing. And I think it really worked out for them.
Yeah, I agree.
A quick question for you guys, or I guess quick discussion point for you guys. I feel like this game was supposed to be a 3DS game originally. Do you guys agree with that?
Maybe. They already had it on the 3DS though, right? Like the obviously not a remake, but
Sure,
virtual console or
Sure,
whatever.
sure.
What makes you say that?
Well,
Just the short.
I mean,
nature
Grezzo
of
had
the
only
game.
Grezzo had only ever
Thank you.
worked on the 3DS up to this point, as far as I understand. With all those remakes, those were all 3DS games,
Yeah.
right? And it definitely also feels like something that because with Zelda, there used to be two pillars of Nintendo, right? There was the handheld Zelda
Right.
games, and then there were the console Zelda games. And the console Zelda games were like Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, stuff like that.
Longer, bigger.
Yeah. And then, you're falling behind the character and not above. But then, like, every game that's come out for the 3DS has been top down, and all the portable stuff has been top down. And so it's like, it definitely feels to me, and it's also people are like, oh man, why is this game $60, right? And it's like, for me, it feels like this game was originally going to be a $40 3DS game, right? And then the 3DS was dying, and they're like, the Switch is coming out. We should definitely not put this out on the 3DS anymore. We saw the fan backlash from like Samus Returns coming out on 3DS. Everybody's like, why isn't this on the Switch? You know what I mean? So I feel like they were like, okay, let's change it up. Let's give it higher definition and put it on
And
the
even
Switch.
that Luigi's Mansion remake,
Yeah,
people were all similarly like, why is that coming to the 3DS?
Yeah, I just feel like they were burned by that, and they were like, all right, well, or somebody higher up at Nintendo was like, all right, we're not doing 3DS games
Depending
anymore.
on when they started development, that could be true. And also, like, we're now at the place where, like you said, now there's just the Switch, so we're getting games that would have been for the 3DS, or for whatever the handheld would have been, like the more budget games, like, Box Boy was a new game for the Switch
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see the numbers on sales for Luigi's Mansion, the remake on 3DS, because
Right.
maybe they're just like, oh man, it's not viable anymore. We can't afford to be putting this out on
For
3DS.
sure.
you
Yeah,
know?
I bet that was a driving factor.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we can charge $60 for it too. So you
It's
might
like
as fucking
money,
well.
and it paid off. I mean,
Yeah,
day
it's the
one
number
sales,
one game.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
So I already had talked a little bit about the humor, but I'm kind of early on in the game. Does that continue throughout the game where there's just kind of these weird things like the guy that talks on his telephone and stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Throughout the whole game?
It never
Yes.
stops.
It
Okay.
never stops. It's amazing.
Yeah. Do y'all feel like it's got a lot of jokiness to it? I mean, because that just strikes me as like the biggest thing about this game, like coming from, Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild. There's not so much silliness, like a little bit here and there, but like this game seems to have it in spades.
Yeah, I mean, like almost every character in this game is similar to Tingle. Like everyone is just
It's a
like
game full of tingles.
freaking character, man. Yeah, and I love it, man. It's comes across really nicely. I think like the first moment I remembered that this game is funny is I tried to read a sign, but I was on the other side, and it says
yeah.
the writing's on the other side. Like, you idiot! Like, why would you try to read a sign from the back?
I keep doing that because I'm just used to that. Not to either not being able to read something if they don't want you to, or it reads the same on both sides, and I've done it like 5 times.
Right,
It's like
right.
gotten a little annoying.
Well,
actually,
I know this game like historically like started as an experiment, right? Like they didn't think that they were making a full game out of this. It was just playing around with a Link to the Past format on Game Boy, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't think it was ever going to turn into a full thing. And then they were like, this is really, really fun. We should turn this into a full game. So I think at that point they were just like, all right, fuck it. Let's just push it as far as we can. Let's do all the same stuff we've been doing with this experiment up to this point.
It's just
and like you said, where Miyamoto was not involved in this game, I think too, like Miyamoto had a very clear vision for Zelda from the very beginning, from the first NES game all the way through A Link to the Past. And so it's like, he's not around. Let's do whatever we want. And I think it was just so charming and nobody could deny its charmability. So you got to run with it.
Yeah. The way the story goes, as I read it, is someone was messing around with a Game Boy development kit trying to make Zelda, and they just started working on it after hours project, and eventually it got to a point where Tezuka's like, okay, I can pitch this to higher ups. they loved it, and they originally wanted to make it like a Link to the Past port for Game
Right,
Boy.
exactly.
But then it kept evolving into kind of its own thing, and they just kept getting more people, and it was pretty much a passion project. And I think like the love really shows in like the humor and like the detail attention on all the characters. Like all the characters are fully fleshed out, have their own like realizations that it's fun to play through, and it's very funny too. Yeah.
I remember as a kid being scared shitless of the shop owner. Because whenever you steal from the shop owner, like first of all, whenever you go back into the shop, he's like, "You will now pay the ultimate price," and he like zaps you with some magic and fucking murders you, right? Yeah, he like murders you, and then you have to like come back. You don't get the perfect ending, and then also everybody in the town calls you thief for the rest of the game.
Yeah, you deserve it.
Yeah, totally.
I really like that. You don't see that in a lot of games where you can make a choice like that and then really suffer for it.
Like the entire game.
Yeah.
Because you can do that very early on. You can steal stuff from the get-go.
Right away.
Yeah. And there's lots of little silly Easter eggs and stuff like that in this game. Like we were talking before the podcast about if you bring Marin into the claw machine shop, there's a whole unique like little kind of cutscene sort of that happens where like Marin will try out the thing and then pick up the claw machine guy and stuff him back where you get all the trophies, and he's really pissed. You know what I mean? And then also if you put Zelda as your name, it plays a little Easter egg song for you. And then they brought all that stuff over for this port as well. Like it's very, very faithful port. Yeah.
What about gameplay? How's this play compared to other games or compared to the earlier versions of it? I know that like we talked about there were so few buttons on the Game Boy that I know that had some limitation of like swapping around things. I haven't gotten super far, so I don't have a lot of like the hook shot or anything like that. But did they change that at all? And how does the gameplay feel for all of y'all?
I like it better. I mean, it makes more sense. We have more buttons, but in the original, one of the main things about not being able to combine items was Miyamoto always wanted the sword equipped in Zelda. And so in the original, you can unequip your sword.
Very good.
Thank you. I'm learning. But in this one, it's always equipped, which I thought is kind of like ironic in the way that, but it works really well. You know, it makes the game feel more modern, and the less time you're in the menu, the more time you have to be immersed in the world that you're surrounded by.
For sure. Yeah. It's just quality of life improvement, right? It's like, being able to just, and right now, whenever you get the dash, what's that called in this game? The Pegasus
boots.
The Pegasus boots. Whenever you get the Pegasus boots, it maps it to the ZL button. So it's like not something that you can equip or unequip. It's like you can just always dash, which when you aren't changing screens every time you're moving to a new location on the overworld, it just makes it to where you can dash across the whole overworld, which is awesome. You know, like it's, and I think that's why a lot of people are complaining that it costs $60. And it's like a way shorter gameplay experience. I think that the game was like artificially bloated by having to like press pause constantly, like on the Game Boy.
All the things,
exactly. Yeah. And so it's like being able to do these things just makes the game better. And yeah, it might make it a little bit shorter, but it's still the same great game.
It really feels very similar to playing like A Link to the Past to me, in terms of just swinging the sword and blocking with the shield and all that. I love that. The 2D or top-down Zelda gameplay.
Miyamoto is finally proud of this game.
No, he liked it.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, yeah, he came on to play test it towards the tail end of it, the original game. Yeah, yeah.
So one other big thing that they added, which I have obviously not gotten to, is the dungeon arranger. Have any of y'all had a chance to look at or do any of that?
I played a little bit of it.
Dampe's dungeon.
Yeah. His name's Dampe.
Dampe.
Which we were talking about before we recorded. Somebody was angry that they added him into this game.
John from Game Explain is like fucking pissed off at Dampe in this game. Just because like this game is all original characters and like nobody else from any of the other Zelda games.
That makes sense.
And he was like, why the hell is somebody from Ocarina of Time in... I'm not going to do it.
But he's not mad about the Mario and Luigi and the Goombas and the piranha
plants. That just adds to the Lynchian bullshit that this game thrives in.
Well, they were already in it, I guess. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Anybody, either of y'all done the Dungeon Arranger? Not yet.
I mean, you're the only one that's done it so far. What do you think about it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, Jordan. I did it a little bit, but I just played like the tutorial, I guess, of it. And yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I'm playing the game right now for the first time, so my focus is on like playing through the story and really enjoying that and being immersed before I start like creating something. I will say the little bit that I played, it feels like you have like a canvas you're gonna make a Zelda game on, but the squares are like predefined, and they're predefined from other dungeons.
Right.
So you're creating them from other dungeons, and so whether you're playing Link's Awakening for the first time or the second time or a 40th time, when you enter into the room, you kind of know what to do already.
Right.
Because
it's it's dungeons you've already been to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They do have a couple like collecting. You collect these. What are they called? Like strange stones, I think is what they're called, and you bring them to Dampe, and he'll organize them for you into new room spaces that you can use that I don't believe are in the regular game. So it has a couple original tiles.
Right.
But like for me personally, if I'm playing through this game, I've already played through, I don't want to mix and match dungeon pieces. I would like to create my own dungeon pieces and start from scratch instead of having to use the ones that I've already know the puzzle. Even if they're in a different order, it's like I know how to beat this room. There's no surprise left for me.
Well, and from what I understand, this came out of originally somebody pitching to them that they would make a Zelda Maker, right? Like a Mario Maker sort of thing.
Exactly.
And this just kind of seems like a half measure to me. You know what I mean? Like it just seems like And from what I understand, this part of the game is very long. Really? And there's just like a ton of different dungeons that you have to beat that are all just remixes of previous dungeons. So it's like, if you don't want to play particular rooms from dungeons you've already played already, then you definitely don't want to do that like 20 times over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
To what you were just saying, this came out that Aonuma was saying that at some point he was talking to Miyamoto about the next Zelda game, and Miyamoto said he'd really like them to think about a way to kind of have a Mario Maker style to it, and this was sort of the first thing that, or what they ended up coming up with, that this game in particular would fit for that reason.
Right.
So yeah, it does feel weird because it does seem like if this fails, I don't think it doesn't mean people don't want to do a Zelda Maker or of some kind.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think if I look at it in two ways, one, it does feel like a half measure.
Right.
It feels tacked on. And the reason that it feels tacked on is because it's similar tiles from other dungeons. And the only way to share dungeons is through Amiibo.
Right. God damn.
Which is such a weird concept. Yet the second way I think about it is if there's enough excitement about this dungeon creator, then that could lead to a Zelda Maker.
Yeah, but there's not going to be excitement because they half-assed it.
So you're telling me is to fake my excitement.
Yes.
And the thing is,
absolutely.
too, it's like I heard them being, I think the kind of idea behind why they did this in the first place is that it's like, it's not like a Mario Maker level where it's like if you can get to the end and then you can put it online and then people can play it, right? With Zelda dungeons, there's a lot more to it. It's a lot more complicated. You have to figure out all the different ways that people might try to beat this dungeon. You have to come up with 10 different steps in order to get to your goal. So I understand that it's more complicated, but I do think that that kind of mindset is like I've played some Mario Maker levels that are like fucking brilliant. You know what I mean? That it's like, I would have never been able to come up with that idea. People are smart enough. There will be enough people that will be able to come up with great Zelda dungeons to like put all their own assets
And why
into
can't it be just get to the end of the dungeon and
Yeah.
get to a specific ending treasure chest? But yeah, and who cares if there's 10 different ways to beat it that you didn't think about or whatever? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. They should definitely not give up on this concept.
Yes.
I agree.
I think everybody wants a Zelda Maker. I think it would do really well, especially with some sort of overworld creation. You know what I mean? Like if you could just make your own Zelda games, that's the fucking dream, right?
Legit, that'd be so cool. Oh my god, I would.
Jordan is
freak
very
out.
excited.
Well, I'm also like, I'm the type of player. I have Super Mario Maker 2. I have never made my own level, but I play everybody else's levels.
Right.
And that's the type of player I am. So when I saw that you can only share dungeons via Amiibo, and I'm like, I'm not going to know enough people who, 1, have Link's Awakening, 2, have an amiibo, and 3, want to like meet up just to share a dungeon. Like
your fucking friend in Philadelphia like ships you as amiibo.
Yeah, dude. Like,
play his level.
What?
And
I just
maybe he would if it was more in depth, right?
Right,
Maybe I would ship that amiibo if I
Yeah.
could, but I would still. Then it would be like, definitely let me put it online or whatever.
So
but.
that's definitely I kind of just wish they didn't even put that in this game at all. You know
honestly,
what I mean?
yeah. I mean, I think they were trying to gauge the excitement for a Zelda Maker, but everyone's just like, no, just give us Zelda Maker.
Yeah.
Don't do this.
And I think that's why John from Game Explain is so pissed. He's like, you brought Dampe in and he doesn't even fucking do anything that I care about. Come on, man. Make up a new character.
Well, you have some we have some notes on the notes about notes on the notes. Mm-hmm. We got notes on notes about maybe some things about this game that aren't so great. Can somebody talk about those?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the frame rate stuff. Like, this is something that was reported back during E3 when people were first having their first-hand impressions of this game, that this game really does dip quite a bit in the frame rate department. And
when
it's
there's like a lot of enemies on screen?
Well, no, not even. In very strange ways. It's like the game runs at 60 FPS. That's what it targets. Excuse me. That's what it targets. But and whenever it is running at 60 FPS, it looks amazing, right? But whenever you do screen transitions, or you move to, from a dungeon to the overworld, or even when you move to different areas in the overworld,
From like the overworld to the town.
right? Yeah. Or it's like, say you're going to like a new area of the overworld, right? Like the game will dip from 60 frames per second down all the way to 30 frames per second, and then kind of chug back up over the course of a few seconds. And it's like, if this game was just 30 frames per second the whole time, I wouldn't care.
I wouldn't have never noticed.
Yeah, I would have never noticed. But whenever all of a sudden it drops down to 30 frames per second, it just looks really bad, For me personally, and I know some people like don't really notice that kind of stuff, but like for me, I was like, damn, this actually is really noticeable, and it happens so consistently that you can't ignore it. And it's kind of a shame. And I wish it was something they could patch out, but it's been an issue since E3. So like maybe it's really hard to patch this out. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems weird that they wouldn't have fixed it by E3 if it was an easy fix.
Right.
Because it's like everyone was talking about it after E3. So it's like they know it's a problem. But I mean, it is, for me, it's like pretty noticeable. At first, when I was playing, I was like, am I imagining this? And I was like, is this only in docked mode? Like on this TV? Is it because I'm playing it on a different TV? And then I tried it in handheld and I was like, no, it's just how it is. Okay. And then I like Googled it, and apparently if you run it on internal memory, digitally download it onto your internal memory, it runs much smoother. But I'm like, I'm playing it on a cartridge. Most people are playing it stored on external memory.
Yeah, we can't download all of our games to the internal memory to help run smoother, because this isn't the first game where we've heard that.
Yeah, I already put Fortnite on my internal memory to help Tilted Towers or whatever it's called.
I wonder why it happens. Is it like a draw distance, or like how it caches textures?
I think it might be grass.
There is
Fucking
a
grass.
very interesting, it's very dry Game Explain video about why it dips. Very technical. My eyes glazed over as I was watching it, but they kind of break it down why it does, and it basically just has to do with the transitions. Yeah,
something about like asset loading, I guess. But I don't know. It's like if Breath of the Wild doesn't really dip like that. I mean, it doesn't like the Korok Forest, but like, you're going from like huge areas to other areas and it loads in the background just fine. So I don't really know exactly what the issue is. I bet this wouldn't have been an issue if it was a 240p 3DS game. I'll tell you that much.
What if it is something, a remnant of that?
Yeah, it could be.
It's supposed to be a 3DS game and then they up-res and they're like, oh shit.
That's some good speculation.
Yeah. That would not surprise me.
Anything else that unhappy with in the game?
I think that I wish that you could use the D-pad to move around.
I've heard people complain about that.
Yeah, very odd.
Because they limit, there's no 360 movement in this game. Like it is an 8-directional game, right? Like still, like there's no difference in if you're going 10 degrees on the joystick or 30 degrees on the joystick, you'll go in one of 8 cardinal directions when you move. So it's very odd that you can't move with the with the D-pad, especially given that this is kind of a launch game for the Switch Lite.
Switch Lite, yeah.
Which has a D-pad on it. So Yeah, and it's not like the D-pad is not usable at all. Like you can use it for menus and you can use it for the claw game.
Oh, right.
So
What?
Yeah.
I've not even tried it because I just thought it wasn't functional.
Yes, yeah. I heard somebody else talk about how they could use it on the claw game, and I was like, oh shit, you can. And
Weird.
So it's very strange. I mean, I would personally prefer to use the D-pad on this. Like for old school games, I love using the D-pad because it's more precise. So it's very strange that you can't do that for this game. It would make like using the Pegasus boots and jumping at the same time a lot easier if you could use the D-pad, I think.
I think so as well. Yeah, that's like something I struggle with sometimes because I always
Same.
fall in the hole, like the third hole.
Yeah,
Like
or I fall in the first hole. I like jump too late.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Other than that, man, because I noticed that, and then the frame rate, I'm pretty satisfied as far as like almost straight remake of the original game, and just with the new button mapping, like not having to switch as much, just really improved the quality of life for me. Yeah.
What do you guys think about this being, like you said, a straight remake? Like for instance, earlier this year we got Pokemon Let's Go, which is a kind of a quote unquote remake of Pokemon Yellow, right? But they added a ton of quality of life improvements, a lot of different stuff, a whole new post game, all this different kind of stuff to that game. This, compared to that, feels like a Game Boy game. You know what I mean? This feels like it was like an older game. Like they went pretty much straight up with this remake. Like it has a visual overhaul. It's got a few quality of life improvements, but the majority of the game is really the same. Like, do you guys wish that they had added more to this game?
I feel like so. I feel like they should have. I guess what they were banking on is this Dungeon Arranger as being like a really big addition. But I think another dungeon or two that wasn't a Dungeon Arranger would have been cool. Like some optional, maybe just a couple optional areas that you can go, and I don't know what the rewards would be, but something.
Well, I mean, like similar to the Color Dungeon, which was an addition to the DX, having like one or two more dungeons that give you a special reward as well.
I would have loved one new one, like the Color Dungeon was new for DX.
And I don't think it would have taken that much effort to even have the Dungeon Arranger and one new dungeon.
Sure.
Why not have both?
Or combine that, like that's how you access it or something.
Yeah, or have it unlock some. Because as I understand, if you beat all the Dungeon Arranger stuff, you get nothing.
That's
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my
It's not like it
God.
unlocks like a new area of the game. Like it's just
it just unlocks the full capability of
it's
the
just like you
Dungeon
beat them all.
Arranger.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I had hopes of playing that, but
Yeah, no.
now they're done.
Everything I hear is just like, don't even play the Dungeon Arranger.
That's too bad because it really feels like it should be better.
Yeah. I agree. That having been said, though, this game is still really good.
Yeah.
And especially if you've never played Link's Awakening before, this is like a brand new Zelda game for you.
It's
a really good Zelda game.
It is. I like playing it. It's like, oh man, this feels like playing the old school Zelda games, and it's awesome. And I think, does anybody have anything else specific to the game that they want to talk about?
I would say that there are many things that I love about this game and many things I love in the world, but two things that I love are dioramas and Zelda. And this game combines them. And like there are times when I'm playing this game where I'll just like really enjoy the art style or the character models or some of the interactions the characters have, their idle animations that are just like super wholesome and joyful.
It's so joyful.
One of my favorite animations is when you fall into the water and Link
Yes.
falling into the water.
He's like,
Yeah.
So adorable.
Yeah,
Like, so
yeah.
funny. I like did it like 5 times in a row. Even
Yeah,
though it was like,
same,
because I was just
same.
like, this is amazing. Yeah.
And his voice is so funny. I love the
Yeah.
voice acting in this game. Like all the little, and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It's great.
I also love like all the instruments and stuff as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're really cool. I want to see Link be like the sickest one-man band of all time. Like have all 8 instruments and playing them all at one time.
I also like that this game follows in the footsteps of Fire Emblem and Mario Odyssey and Super Smash Brothers on having a song with lyrics now in this game. Like the Windfish song actually has lyrics now, which is pretty cool.
Well, I think that also leads into I think the music in this game is really great. As somebody who
Fantastic.
never played I think they redid some of the music for it, but the music from Link's Awakening is classic Zelda music that I didn't realize was from this game. You know what I mean? Like I just knew it as Zelda music. I saw a really funny thing on Twitter, like the guy who played flute in some of the songs. Did you guys see this?
Nuh-uh.
Like he put it out a tweet and it's in Japanese, but the translation was something into the effect of when he was a kid, he went to his mom and was like, "Look, Mom, I learned how to play the music from Zelda on my flute."
Oh,
and his
so
mom was
good.
like, "What are you doing playing video games?" They got mad at him for and then he's like, "And now I'm professionally playing the music for Zelda
Yeah,
games
it's so
and getting
fucking
paid to
cool.
do it."
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
bam, video games are cool. And,
Yeah.
or like, okay, they can lead you to good things.
Yeah, it's nice to hear the like original Zelda theme too, like fully done with real instruments and stuff. After Breath of the Wild, where like we didn't really get that in that game. Like Breath of the Wild had amazing music, but it didn't really have the Zelda theme in it.
Yeah.
You had like kind of hints of it and stuff like that, and they were kind of plinky piano stuff. But like here we get to hear just like a full arrangement of the Zelda song with real instruments, and it sounds really nice.
Cool. Well, we have this note too. Yeah, one more thing. Go ahead.
One note on the music too. It was the some of the first projects for these two women at Nintendo, and I wanted to say Minako Hamano and Kozi Ishikawa. Yeah, it was like their first project that they worked on for Nintendo, and I think they knocked it out of the park.
They killed
Oh,
it.
nice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, at
awesome.
least that's what I'd seen, and I think I watched like a game historian video about it, and I was like, dude, this music is sick, and the
Yeah.
remake is just as good.
Yeah, they're like tunes that like carry over from chiptune to real instruments really, really well.
Definitely. Yeah.
So we have this note too. We should talk about this. Is there anything you would want to see Grezzo work on next? Now that they're done with this game, or if they were going to do another Zelda port of another handheld to Switch, or something else, or an original Zelda game? Have they earned that?
I would love to see them do, well, first of all, I loved Ever Oasis, so I'd like to see them actually do a proper Switch sequel to that.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah,
Honestly, like weirdly enough. But man, a remake of the original Zelda, like the very first one.
Oh, okay, right.
Like I remember I loved Metroid Zero Mission and it made the original Metroid like unplayable to me, cause it's like, I remember Zero Mission being just like a faithful adaptation and a very, very good remake. So I would love to see them do something similar for the original Zelda, which
There's a lot of quality of life stuff you could do with that game too.
ton, dude.
Yeah.
Like that
And
game
Zelda
is,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either one, I'd take it, but the original Zelda for sure.
That'd be cool.
Matt.
I would love to see same art style, incredible music, Chrono Trigger.
Hell yeah. Okay.
I'm swinging for the fences.
yeah. That would be great. Yeah.
Just
Like the kind of tilt shift style with Chrono Trigger. would be
yeah,
really cool.
there was like that fan remake that they came out. They got squanched by
Squanched by Squanch.
Squanchy
by
nuts.
Squaresoft a couple of years ago, and they released some of their videos of like the fight on the bridge.
Yeah, I
and
remember
it's
that.
like made in the Unreal Engine, and I was like, oh my, that's exactly what I want. And if this similar art style was for Chrono Trigger, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think in the Zelda world, I mean, obviously, I'd love to see remakes in the same style of Oracle of Seasons and Ages. Those are also great games developed by Capcom, but done in the exact same style as Link's Awakening for the Game Boy Color. So it's like, I think if this does well enough, maybe they'll just use the same engine and remake those games. That would be fucking great.
That'd be awesome.
But I would really like to see Grezzo do Skyward Sword. I think Skyward Sword is a fantastic game.
I agree.
Like, that is held back by a lot of logistical shit that game dealt with, weird menu systems, them like, giving you the same, spiel every time you get a rupee or whatever, or an apple or something like that, and the motion controls, like you were saying, Patrick. I think Grezzo would do a great job with that. And they've already shown that they can do 3D Zelda games. So I would love to see them work on something like that.
That's cool. I missed every handheld Zelda game because I had never played them. I only played the ones on console, so I'll take whatever.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Cool. I think that wraps up our discussion on Link's Awakening. Good job, everybody.
All right, moving on to the next segment of the show.
Wait, I do have one quote.
God damn it.
More quotes.
Just one quote. I really like this quote. I heard it in it was Takashi Tezuka, the main producer, I guess, right? He said, "I remember it was fun working on it, and when it was over, I remember us talking to each other about how fun it was."
That's all you could ask for. from a game development perspective.
Wholesome quote for a wholesome game.
All right. That's really nice. All right. Next segment now.
Speaking of wholesome, we got 2 wholesome games this weekend.
Hell yeah. What are you playing?
Link's Awakening and Untitled Goose Game.
Hell yeah.
And both of these games have brought so much joy to my weekend. First, I'll start with Untitled Goose Game. It's just so good. There are not that many buttons, but there's a button for honk,
Yeah.
a button for flapping your wings,
Uh-huh.
a button for run, and for pick stuff up.
Uh-huh.
That's all you need?
That's all you
really
need.
all
Yeah.
you need if you're a goose.
Yeah,
That's
if
all you
you're a
can really
goose.
do.
Yeah. My love for this game goes very far. I'm trying to convince my girlfriend to allow me to put in our new home a cross-stitch goose in an ornate frame.
Yeah.
So wish me luck.
Nice.
Good luck.
Yeah, that game is really delightful.
Yeah.
I've also been enjoying that game. And it's like the whole mood of that game is just more than I was expecting, basically. Like the kind of very minimalistic piano score to it is so nice. And like the kind of, it's the first game where like it rewards you for being a dick without me feeling bad about myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're a goose.
Because you're a
You're
goose.
supposed to be a dick. Geese are dicks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, how far are you in the game?
I beat the game.
Oh, you beat it?
Yeah.
That's probably not that
pretty
long.
short
man.
game.
Yeah,
right?
I beat it, and then it gives you more objectives at the end.
Okay, cool.
And that was really cool. So I get to play it again and have a smaller set of objectives for each of the different areas.
Okay, cool. I've gotten to the second area where you like trap that kid in the phone booth.
Yeah.
That's where I am. How far would you say I am into the game?
You're probably maybe halfway.
Really? So it
Yeah,
is
a
very
little less
short
than
game.
half.
Yeah,
I did read and hear that one big criticism is very short.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll add some more content or
so
something.
good. It's so
since been
enjoyable.
so successful.
Like how I measure the quality of the dollars that I spend is what's my enjoyment?
Yeah.
Not necessarily the length. And so it's the same like Return of Edith Finch and this game like are super good and super wholesome. And I don't know. Did you guys ever play a Windows 95 game, Beavis and Butthead Virtual Stupidity?
I can't say that I have.
No, that's a deep pool.
Crickets across the Switch Headz universe. But that game is a point and click adventure, and like Untitled Goose Game scratches the itch of being like a stealth game, a comedy game, and like a point and click adventure because you have
Sort of sandboxy too, right?
sort of sandboxy where
Totally
you have
sandboxy.
this objective, and there are many ways to meet that objective. Like the boy that you put in the phone booth, you have to knock his glasses off, but
Right.
there are many ways to knock his glasses
Oh,
off.
yeah.
And we were talking in the Switch Head Facebook group about the different ways you can like honk at him, or you can like chase him and he like runs into stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so good. And I beat Astral Chain.
Oh,
nice.
congratulations.
Thank you. I did
Very
it.
good.
I finished the game.
You're a star cop.
Yeah, I am a star cop. And that game is so good. It's just been like such a good, wholesome weekend.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And
I'm
like
really
I
happy
am
for
so like I went into work yesterday and through today, I'm just like, man, this is so good.
Yeah.
I'm super happy right now.
So many good games this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what about you,
who
Patrick?
wants
What
to
have
go
you been
next?
playing?
Patrick.
I played a lot of Mario Odyssey over the weekend with my kid.
Working your way back through those
Working my
moons?
way back through. I'm not trying to get all the moons. It's kind of great now because he's older and when we're playing it together. It's mostly me playing. Occasionally, I'll let him do stuff, but it's, tricky platforming. I also realized he can't really hold a controller well. His hands are just too small. But we're just cruising through it because he doesn't care about like go explore over there. He's like, we got to get 10 moons so we can go to the next place. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when you know how to get that many moons because you've played it before and gotten almost every one, we are flying through that game. But it's great because it's him and me doing it together. And then I've been playing more Red Strings Club,
nice.
which I don't know if I like it or not yet.
But
it's
still you continue to
I'm
play.
playing it. It's only I've looked it up, only about 4 or 5 hours. So I'm going to play it regardless. I like the setting and certain elements of it, but there are parts where you do pottery and parts where you pour drinks, and they're just tedious. It's like they've added these gamified things, and the rest of it's sort of a dialogue-driven, kind of story-based. You choose options of what to say and stuff, and I like that part because it's interesting. But then when I have to make a drink, I'm like, fuck, I could try. Oh no, I'm spilling. Oh no, too much ice, whatever.
Sure.
Anyway, that's mostly what I've been playing, other than a little bit of Link's Awakening.
Right. Yeah, I've been playing some Link's Awakening for sure. I've also been playing some Goose Game. I've been enjoying that quite a bit.
David's looking at a Switch right now.
Yeah, I am. I never remember what I played, so I always pull up my Switch. Speaking of short games, I'm doing one of your segues, Patrick.
Yeah.
I bought this game called Love, which was only 50 cents on the eShop. James West brought this up in the Switch Headz group. And I had actually been looking for a sale on it because I'd heard it was a notoriously short game. I think I beat the game in probably under 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It's really, really fast.
I didn't realize it was that short.
It's really short. Yeah. It's hard.
It's like a 2D platformer?
Yeah, it's like a 2D platformer, kind of like a pixel perfect sort of platformer sort of thing. But it's not that hard to get through. It's just like a trial and error sort of thing. And then whenever you beat it, it's all about how fast can you beat the levels, right? But for 50 cents, it's definitely worth checking out. It's got a very minimalistic graphic style, but it's got a really great soundtrack. I would really check it out. And then in addition to that, probably my favorite game that I played this weekend out of all the games, and we've been talking about a lot of great games. Well, before I get to that, I did play the Tetris 99 Maximus Cup. Got that theme, baby. Anyway, like I was saying, the game that I think is my favorite game from this weekend, even with all the good games that have come out, is Sayonara Wild Hearts. And I was looking forward to this game already, but I did not expect to like it as much as I did. I really, really love this game.
I did notice you playing it a lot when I was on my Switch. You were always playing it. I'm like, well, you got to be playing Link's Awakening. As I sit over here play Odyssey.
We
I should play Link's
yeah.
Awakening too.
We have a podcast episode about it, dude.
Yeah, I know. We should have done an episode on Sayonara Wild Hearts, but it would probably be longer than the game. The game is also very short. That's a game that you can beat in probably an hour or an hour and a half. But it's it just is... they pitch it as an interactive pop album, and that's really what it is. It's when you're listening to a record and you kind of see visuals in your head on what you think the album is like that's kind of what this is, and it's and it's not a difficult game, and it's very forgiving. If you fuck up one of the levels, it sends you back only a few seconds to try to beat that section again. Right. And, but the joy of it is playing it again and trying to get all those gold rankings on all the levels. Right. But, and then also whenever you beat the game, you can unlock a mode in which to just play the whole thing as one album continuous, without breaks in between the songs and stuff like that. And the gameplay, it's really hard to describe. We were trying to talk about it last week. You were like, is it a rhythm game? And I was like, no. And it is kind of a rhythm game. It's like a rhythm game in the same way that Thumper is a rhythm game. You ever play Thumper?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not really technically a rhythm game, but it's all set to music and the stuff happens on the beat.
Gotcha.
But it's more about your reflexes, right? And how you can adapt to new things that are coming up on the screen. And then it also does remind me of Star Fox or an on-rails sort of shooter. And in the same way that Star Fox is that's a short game. If you beat Star Fox 64 from start to finish, it's an hour. You know what I mean? But it's all about playing it in different ways and learning different things about it and stuff like that. And I just loved all the different gameplay experiences within it. There's one point where there's this woman that you're playing against who has this VR headset on, and then you become the game in her VR headset that she's playing. And it's so trippy. And the screen is constantly turning to kind of take the new perspectives into account. And it's so good. It's really hard for me to explain it. And I really just recommend that you just get this game. And if you have an iPhone, if you don't want to get it on the Switch, or if you don't really have the money, Brian Bonnet posted about this. It's part of Apple Arcade, which you can get a free month trial for, and you can just play this game for free with your Apple Arcade
trial. And you think it would be a fine
iPhone.
Game to play on a phone or an iPad or something?
I think it would work perfectly fine. The controls are very simple. It's just thumbstick and one button. And it's very simple, but man, I loved it. And the music is incredible. And if you are going to play this game, I really recommend you play it with a really nice pair of headphones, because the music is just thumping and it really puts you into the mood. Also, this might be a spoiler, but Queen Latifah is in the game, so that's exciting.
Nice. Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously lots of Link's Awakening. I'm pretty far. I'm on level 6, or at least dungeon 6, I guess. They call them levels. just like they call bosses nightmares and not bosses, but they're bosses. Anyway, so I've been playing a lot of that. I also played Tetris 99 to get the skin.
The Kirby skin?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, pound it out, baby.
Dude, yeah, I missed the Game Boy skin, which I'm still like kicking myself for.
yeah,
And so
Game
I
Boy.
vowed to never miss another skin. So
Right,
I got the one this weekend. Didn't get first place, still chasing that first place.
Chasing that dub.
Oh man, dude, I had woken
I'll
up
give
in
you
the
some
middle
pointers.
of the night. Oh, thanks, dude. I'd woken up in the middle of the night, turned it on because I remembered there was that going on. I got number 2 half asleep, and I was like, "Oh, I can get it now." And then I never got even anywhere close. Yeah. So I've been playing that, and then I also have been playing Ubisoft game Child of Light.
Yeah.
I bought that, but I haven't played it yet.
That's exactly what happened with me. I finished Hollow Knight, and I was like, "All right, move on to the next game."
To like
Try
a
to-
rhyming game.
Oh yeah. Oh, all right. Yeah, and it's good. It's kind of like a mix of like a Metroidvania meets. It also the battle system reminds me somewhat of like Paper Mario or Super Mario RPG.
Right, yeah, it's kind of turn-based, right?
Yeah, it's turn-based, but you, in Paper Mario, you only ever have 2 people, and it's the same. Like you have 2 people, but you can also switch them out. Yeah, it's pretty fun, and I heard it's a shorter RPG experience,
Yeah.
which some people complained about. But for me, I'm like,
Right.
Yeah, you love that shit.
Yeah, I'm an adult. I got shit to do, man.
No,
Yes.
Yeah, so it's great. But yeah, so I've been really enjoying that. Other than that, yeah, just Link's Awakening. Oh, I did turn on for the first time in like 2 months Apex Legends yesterday. And,
Let's talk, baby.
oh, dude, I am so garbage now.
Well, there's a new character coming out, right? Or is he out already?
Yeah,
She already came out.
She already came
Watson?
out. Watson came
okay,
out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I recently played it 2 weeks ago, and I was like, maybe 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow.
They're about to do a new season, so I'm like, you know what? I'll try it out whenever the new season comes out, see if they add in some more stuff. But yeah. But that's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Jordan. Thanks for being our guest this
Yeah,
week.
did you have a good time?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I remember it being a really fun time being on here, and after it was over, we all talked about how fun it was.
Well, we're nothing if not consistent.
Hey, one little late breaking news thing. I just popped on the internet while we were on a break and saw that Aspire said that they are going to patch in the inverted axis Y axis. I can't talk. To Jedi Outcast. So
Thank
there
God.
you go, David.
I'll buy it, but I'm gonna wait because I don't want this to turn into a bloodstained situation.
There you go. Well, thanks to Corduroy for doing our music. Thanks to
Thank you,
everybody.
Corduroy.
Thanks everybody for listening.
What's up, Cody?
What up, Cody?
If you want to find us online, we do that. I'm PDYX most places online.
I am Matthew on Twitter, MATHYOU.
You can find me everywhere online at Monolith Fiji.
You can find me on Instagram at Bordan. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
You think they're listening right now?
My dad definitely will listen. My mom, fitty.
Well, thank you everybody so much for listening to this podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Switch Headz. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Super Switch Headz. Make sure you join our Facebook group and visit us at superswitchheads.com at some point in the future. And we love you guys so much. I don't really know what we're talking about next week, but we're going to have a great episode for you regardless. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll see you guys next week. We love you. Bye-bye.